Imagine marrying the man of your dreams. A billionaire. Charming, generous, successful. He tells you his first wife died tragically 3 years ago. He shows you the grave. He cries when he talks about her. You hold him. You comfort him. You build a new life together. And then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, you are scrolling through your stepchild's tablet looking for a homework app, and you find a video. A recent video. And in that video, you see a woman sitting at a kitchen table with 2 children on her lap, laughing, braiding their hair, calling them by name. Your husband's children. The children he told you were living with his mother in Lagos. And the woman in that video, the woman who is very much alive and breathing and smiling, is the same woman whose funeral photos hang in your husband's study. His dead wife. Except she is not dead at all. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you are new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Let us start from the beginning. His name was David Adeyemi. Born in 1978 in a small town outside of Ibadan, in Oyo State, Nigeria. David was the third of 6 children. His father was a civil servant who worked at the state secretariat. His mother sold Oso oak fabric at Dugby Market. They were not wealthy by any standard, but they were proud Yoruba people who believed in education above all else. David was brilliant. Teachers noticed it early. By the time he was 14, he had won every academic competition his school could enter him into. He earned a full scholarship to the University of Lagos, where he studied petroleum engineering. And by 25, he had talked his way into an entry-level position at a multinational oil company with offices in Houston, Texas. That was the beginning of everything. David did not just work hard. He worked with a kind of relentless, almost obsessive precision. Within 5 years, he had climbed from junior analyst to senior project manager. Within 10 years, he had started his own energy consulting firm. And by the time he turned 40, David Adeyemi was worth just over $1.2 billion. He had homes in Houston, Atlanta, and Dubai. He drove cars most people only see in magazines. And back home in Nigeria, he was treated like royalty. People in his hometown spoke his name with reverence. He built schools. He funded clinics. He was the boy who made it. The son of Ibadan who conquered America. But here is the thing about David that most people did not know. Behind the tailored suits and the charity galas and the magazine interviews, David carried a very specific kind of loneliness. The kind that comes from building an empire and realizing that the higher you climb, the fewer people can actually reach you. And the one person who had always been able to reach him, the one person who knew him before any of the money and the fame, was a woman named Jennifer. Jennifer Afolabi. They met at the University of Lagos in 1999. She was studying law. He was in engineering. They crossed paths at a campus bookstore near the Faculty of Arts when they both reached for the same copy of a textbook on international trade policy. He let her have it. She smiled, said "ESE" with a warmth that made his chest tighten, and that, David would later tell people, was the moment his life actually began. Jennifer had a laugh that could fill an entire room. She wore her hair in neat cornrows most days and had a habit of humming Ebenezer Obey songs while she studied. She was the kind of woman who made everyone around her feel calm, like whatever was going wrong in the world could be set aside for just a little while. David was drawn to her instantly, and she to him. They dated for 4 years. They married in 2003, in a traditional Yoruba ceremony in her parents' compound in Abeokuta. It was not lavish by any means. There were maybe 80 guests. Her mother and aunties cooked jollof rice and pounded yam in enormous pots. The aso ebi was a deep royal blue. Her father performed the traditional prayers and her uncle gave a toast that made everyone laugh until they cried. And when David looked at Jennifer that evening, standing under a canopy of white fabric with the Ogun State sunset behind her, he told his best man, "I will never need anything else. This woman is everything." For the first several years, the marriage was everything both of them had hoped for. Jennifer moved to Houston with David in 2005, and they settled into a modest apartment in the 3rd Ward while he was still working his way up at the oil company. She studied for the Texas bar exam but never took it. Instead, she focused on supporting David's career, managing his schedule, editing his proposals, making sure he ate actual meals instead of living on coffee and ambition. She would make umla and yudu on Sunday evenings, and the smell of fermented locust beans would drift through their small apartment while David sat at the kitchen table mapping out his next 5-year plan. In 2006, they had their first child, a boy they named Raphael. He had David's forehead and Jennifer's wide, curious eyes. In 2008, their daughter Daisy was born. She came into the world screaming, and the nurse laughed and said, "This one has something to say." David was building his company during this time, working 18-hour days, flying back and forth to Nigeria, barely sleeping. And Jennifer held everything together. She raised the children. She handled the household. She kept the family connected to their roots by cooking Nigerian dishes every Sunday, playing King's Sunny Ade on Saturday mornings while she cleaned, and calling both sets of grandparents on video chat every week so that Raphael and Daisy would know their grandmother's voice as well as they knew their mother's. But the more successful David became, the more the distance between them grew. Not in miles. In something harder to measure. He started coming home later. Then not at all some nights. Business trips became longer. Phone calls became shorter. The man who used to sit at the kitchen table and talk to Jennifer for hours now barely looked up from his phone during dinner. Jennifer told her younger sister Bukola on the phone one evening in 2010 that she felt like she was married to a company, not a man. She said, "Bookie, I cook his food, I iron his clothes, I raise his children, and he looks through me like I am made of glass." Bukola told her to be patient. That success required sacrifice. That David loved her. That Yoruba men sometimes lose themselves in work but always come back home. And Jennifer wanted to believe that. She held on to that hope the way you hold on to a rope in deep water, not because you are sure it will save you, but because letting go is unthinkable. By 2012, David's net worth had crossed the $200 million mark. He moved the family into a 6-bedroom house in River Oaks, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Houston. To anyone looking from the outside, the Adeyemis were the picture of success. A beautiful Yoruba family living the American dream. But inside that house, the silence was deafening. David and Jennifer barely spoke. When they did, it was about logistics. School pickups. Grocery lists. Bill payments. The warmth that had once defined their relationship had been replaced by a kind of polite distance that felt worse than any argument. Jennifer suggested counseling. David said he did not have time. She suggested a vacation, just the two of them. Maybe back to Abeokuta, back to where it all started. He agreed twice and cancelled both times. And then in early 2013, something shifted. David came home one night and sat Jennifer down at the kitchen table. The children were asleep. The house smelled like the puff Jennifer had fried earlier that afternoon, the same recipe her mother taught her when she was 12. And David told her he thought it would be best if she took the children back to Nigeria for a while. He said the kids needed to be closer to family. He said his mother, Mama Adeyemi, was getting older and wanted to spend time with her grandchildren. He said Raphael should know what it means to grow up around his people, not just in American suburbs. He said it was temporary. Jennifer looked at him for a long time. She studied his face the way she used to study her law textbooks, looking for the thing that was not being said. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She simply asked, "David, is there someone else?" David said no. And maybe at that point, there was not. But Jennifer knew something had broken between them that could not be repaired with a plane ticket. She agreed to go. Not because she believed his reasons, but because she was tired. Tired of reaching for a man who kept pulling away. Tired of performing happiness for Instagram and church friends while drowning quietly in her own kitchen. In March of 2013, Jennifer took Raphael and Daisy and flew back to Nigeria. She moved into a comfortable house in Lekki Phase 1, Lagos, that David had purchased for them. The house had 4 bedrooms and a small garden. She enrolled Raphael in a private school in Victoria Island and found a Montessori program for Daisy. She cooked for her children every night. She helped Raphael with his homework. She sang Daisy to sleep with the same Yoruba lullabies her own mother had sung to her. She built a life. A quiet, dignified life. David sent money every month. He called the children on weekends. Sometimes he would speak to Jennifer briefly, asking if they needed anything, and she would say no, and the conversation would end with the sound of a call disconnecting. Over time, the calls became less frequent. The money kept coming, but David himself began to fade from their daily lives like a photograph left too long in the sun. And then in August of 2014, something happened that would change the course of this entire story. David called Jennifer and told her he wanted a divorce. He said their marriage had run its course. He said he would be generous. He would take care of her and the children financially for as long as they needed. But he wanted to move on. Jennifer was devastated, but she was not surprised. She had felt it coming for months, the way you feel rain coming before the first drop falls. What she did not expect was what came next. David's lawyer sent her divorce papers along with a confidentiality agreement. The agreement was 17 pages long. It stated that in exchange for a significant financial settlement, Jennifer would agree to not publicly discuss the details of their marriage or divorce. She would also agree to limited public visibility, meaning she would not do interviews, post on social media about David, or attend events where she might be photographed in connection with him. She would essentially agree to become invisible. Now, I want you to pause and think about that for a moment. Imagine being told that the person you built a life with, the person you followed to a foreign country, the person whose children you carried and raised and sang to sleep every single night, wants you to essentially disappear. Not just from his life, but from the public record of his life. As if you never existed. How would that make you feel? Would you sign that agreement? Would you fight it? Think about that as we continue. Jennifer signed the papers. She signed them because she was exhausted. She signed them because the settlement was enough to secure Raphael and Daisy's future through university and beyond. And she signed them because, in her own words to her sister Bukola, I do not have the energy to fight a billionaire. I am one woman in Lagos with 2 children. He has lawyers in 3 countries. What am I going to do? Bukola cried on the phone when she heard this. She begged Jennifer to reconsider. But Jennifer had made up her mind. She would let David have his freedom. She would keep her children. And she would try, somehow, to rebuild a life from the pieces he had left behind. The divorce was finalized quietly in late 2014. No press coverage. No public record that anyone would easily find. As far as the world was concerned, David Adeyemi was still the charming, successful Yoruba-American billionaire with the picture-perfect life. And that is exactly how David wanted it. Because what Jennifer did not know, what she would not find out until much later, was that David had already begun telling people a very different story about her. Not to everyone. Just to the people who mattered. The new business partners. The new social circle. The new woman. Her name was Monique. Monique Palmer. She was 31 years old, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. She worked in public relations for a luxury lifestyle brand. She was smart, polished, beautiful, and had absolutely no idea about the truth of the man she was falling in love with. David met Monique at a charity gala in Atlanta in early 2015. They were seated at the same table. He told her he was a widower. He said his first wife, Jennifer, had died in 2013 from a sudden cardiac event. He said it happened without warning. He said she collapsed in their kitchen one afternoon while making dinner for the children. He said it with such genuine pain in his voice, such precise and devastating detail, that Monique reached across the table and held his hand. He told her he had 2 children, Raphael and Daisy, who were living with his mother in Lagos because the grief had been too much for him to manage alone. He said he was only now beginning to feel ready to open his heart again. Monique believed every word. Why would she not? He was wealthy, respected, and seemingly vulnerable in a way that made her want to protect him. And the story he told was so specific, so heartbreaking, that doubting it would have felt cruel. They began dating in the spring of 2015. By the summer, Monique had moved into David's Houston home. By the end of the year, she had met his business associates, attended events on his arm, and become a fixture in his public life. And in February of 2016, David proposed. The ring was a 7-carat emerald-cut diamond. The proposal happened on a private beach in the Maldives. And Monique said yes without a single hesitation because she believed, with her whole heart, that God had brought her this man to heal him. They married in June of 2016 in a lavish ceremony at a private estate in Savannah, Georgia. 200 guests. A 12-piece orchestra. David wore a custom white agbada for part of the reception as a nod to his heritage, and Monique wore a gheli that his tailor in Lagos had sent over. There was even a framed photo of Jennifer at the reception, placed on a small table near the entrance with a white candle beside it, a tribute to the woman who had supposedly passed. Monique had insisted on it. She wanted to honor Jennifer's memory. She had no idea she was honoring a woman who was at that very moment, 6,000 miles away, helping Raphael practice his multiplication tables. For the first 2 years of their marriage, everything seemed genuine. David was attentive, generous, and present in a way that Monique's friends openly envied. But there were small things. Things Monique noticed but did not dwell on. David never talked about Jennifer in detail. When Monique asked questions about his first wife, he would shut down. His jaw would tighten. He would say it was too painful. She also noticed that David's relationship with his children seemed unusual. He said Raphael and Daisy were living with his mother in Lagos, but he rarely visited them. Maybe once or twice a year. And when he did, he always went alone. Monique offered to come with him several times. She wanted to meet the children, to build a relationship with them. But David always had a reason why it was not the right time. Monique accepted these excuses because when you love someone, you often choose to believe the version of reality that causes the least pain. But then came the Tuesday that changed everything. It was October 2019. 3 years into their marriage. Monique was home alone. David was on a business trip to London. His son Raphael's tablet had been left behind during a brief visit the children had made to Houston over the summer, a visit that Monique had not been allowed to attend because David said the children were not ready. Monique picked up the tablet to charge it. The screen lit up and opened to a video gallery. She tapped on a recent video dated just 2 weeks earlier. And what she saw made her entire body go still. The video showed a woman sitting at a kitchen table in a modern, well-furnished apartment. The walls were painted a soft yellow. There was a calendar on the wall with Yoruba proverbs printed on each month. 2 children were with her. Raphael and Daisy. The woman was braiding Daisy's hair into neat cornrows while Raphael sat beside them eating a bowl of cornflakes. The woman was laughing. She called them Omomi, my children. She kissed the top of Daisy's head. And then Raphael turned the camera toward the woman and said, "Say hi, mommy." And the woman smiled and waved and said, "Hi, my love. Stop recording me, you this boy." Monique stared at the screen. Her hands were trembling. She watched the video again. And again. Then she opened the rest of the gallery. Dozens of videos. Hundreds of photos. Birthday parties with cakes that said, "Happy Birthday Daisy," in pink icing. School events where the woman sat in the audience wearing ankara. Trips to Lekki Beach where all 3 of them stood at the shoreline laughing. The woman cooking in a kitchen, Daisy on a stool beside her. Bedtime stories in Yoruba. This woman was not David's mother. This was Jennifer. The same Jennifer whose framed funeral photo sat in David's study. And she was alive. What would you do in that moment? Sitting alone in that enormous house, holding proof that your entire marriage was built on a lie about a dead woman who is not dead? Think about that. Monique did not call David. She screenshot everything. Every video. Every photo. Every timestamp. She emailed copies to herself and her sister Denise. Then she searched for hours. Jennifer Afolabi Adeyemi. Obituaries. Death records. Nigerian registries. She found nothing. No death certificate. No obituary. What she found was a Facebook profile, mostly private, but with Jennifer's face as the profile picture. Active. Most recent post from 3 days ago, a photo of Daisy in a school uniform with the caption, "My Star Girl." Over the next 3 weeks, while David traveled, Monique quietly met with a Houston divorce attorney named Patricia Chen. Patricia reviewed the evidence and told Monique that what David had done almost certainly constituted fraud and the marriage could be challenged on grounds of deliberate misrepresentation. Monique also reached out to Jennifer through a mutual connection in Houston's Yoruba community. She wrote a careful message introducing herself and ending with, "I know that you are alive, and I am so sorry for what has been done to both of us." Jennifer responded within 2 hours. "I have been carrying this alone for 5 years. Can we talk?" Their first phone call lasted 3 hours. Jennifer told Monique everything. The marriage, the deterioration, the exile to Nigeria, the confidentiality agreement. She told Monique that David had explicitly told Raphael and Daisy not to mention their mother to anyone, telling them it was, for mommy's protection. He had made his own children carry the weight of his lie. Jennifer said she had considered going public many times but feared the financial penalties and losing the monthly transfers her children depended on. Then she told Monique something that shattered her completely. "I do not hate you. I feel sorry for you. Because he did to you what he did to me. He made you love a man who does not exist. The David you know is a character he created. And one day, he will write you out of the story too." 2 women on opposite sides of an ocean, both deceived by the same man. One erased and silenced. The other handed a fairy tale built on that silence. Neither was the villain. If you have ever trusted someone completely, you understand why this story cuts so deep. When David returned in November 2019, Monique was ready. Attorney on retainer. Evidence stored in 3 locations. She sat him down on a Sunday evening and asked, "David, tell me again. How did Jennifer die?" He gave the same answer. Her heart. It happened suddenly. Monique placed the tablet on the coffee table and pressed play. Jennifer's laughter filled the room. Raphael's voice saying, "Say hi, mommy." David stared at the screen. The color left his face. When he finally looked up, Monique saw something she had never seen in 4 years of marriage. Not guilt. Not shame. Fear. He tried to explain. Said it started as a misunderstanding he never corrected. Said the children were fine. Said it was not as bad as it looked. Monique listened to every word, then said, "I want a divorce. And I want the truth to come out." David turned cold. He threatened to bury her legally. Reminded her of the prenuptial agreement. Said no one would believe her. And that was his greatest miscalculation. He underestimated Monique Palmer. Because she did not just have the evidence. She had Jennifer. And Jennifer, after 5 years of enforced silence, was finally ready to speak. The divorce proceedings began in early 2020 on grounds of fraudulent inducement. Jennifer provided a sworn video deposition from Lagos confirming she was alive, had never been ill, and that David had orchestrated the narrative of her death. When a Houston reporter obtained details of the deposition, the story broke open. David's business partners distanced themselves. His firm lost 3 major contracts. Board members resigned. The empire began to fracture under the weight of its own false foundation. The divorce was finalized in late 2020. The prenuptial agreement was partially voided on fraud grounds. Monique moved back to Atlanta, spent months in therapy, then founded a nonprofit providing legal resources to women victimized by deceptive marriages. She named it the Jennifer Project. When asked why, she said, "Because Jennifer deserved to be named. She deserved to exist. And I refuse to be part of a world that pretends she did not." Jennifer remained in Lagos with Raphael and Daisy. After the confidentiality agreement was found unenforceable, she gave a single interview to a Nigerian digital publication. She said, "I was not a wife who was lost. I was a wife who was hidden. There is a difference. And that difference matters. I want every woman who has been made to feel invisible to know that your existence is not negotiable. You are not a chapter someone can tear out of their book." David Adeyemi's public image never fully recovered. He sold properties. His company was restructured under new leadership. He still has money. But the consequences followed him in ways money could not fix. Raphael is 16 now, an excellent student who wants to study engineering. Daisy is 14 and still has something to say about everything, just like the day she was born. They live with their mother, who wants them to know that the truth, no matter how long it takes, is always worth telling. This story is about wealth used not just to build but to bury. About the silence women are pressured into keeping. But most of all, it is about two women placed on opposite sides of an enormous lie who found their way to each other. Monique did not have to reach out to Jennifer. Jennifer did not have to respond. But they chose honesty. They chose solidarity. They chose to see each other not as rivals but as two human beings who deserved the truth. If you discovered that the foundation of your entire life was built on someone else's lie, what would you do? Would you stay quiet to protect your comfort? Or would you speak, even knowing it might cost you everything? Tell me in the comments what part of this story hit you hardest. Was it the moment Monique found the videos? Jennifer's words about being hidden? The children keeping their mother a secret? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. And I will see you in the next one.